what advice would you give to folks dealing with bullying these days?
Um, One of the main things that I'd say is first and foremost, check who your friends really are.
Ah,
Uh, check your friends and circle yourself with good people.
yes.
Uh, I tell teenagers all the time, if you're the smartest one in your group, you may want to find a new group. You
That's
know,
good advice.
uh, surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with positive people, with positive you. And not only that, you gotta you gotta ask questions. You gotta ask questions. You gotta go to reliable adults. Your teachers, your counselors. You know, and you gotta not be afraid to ask a question. A lot of times.
Hi friends, Mr. Stevey here, and welcome to a special episode of Mr. Stevey Meditates. Today, I'm going to talk about Mr. Stevey and Friends. This free outdoor event takes place this Saturday, June 26th, and starts at noon at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Park in Sarasota. We're going to have art activities, drama exercises, mindful movement, and much more. Friends, this is an outdoor event and we will be practicing social distancing. So bring your mask, and if you don't have one, we'll provide one for you. For more information or to register online, click the link in the description. This month's event features a bullying prevention theme and our No Bully Zone with free food, raffle prizes, and more. This is the fourth in a monthly series of free outdoor events featuring arts, education, and mindfulness activities for area students and their families. And none of this would be possible without this special collaboration between the Newtown Nation, the Newtown Farmers Market, Van Wezel Artworks Anywhere, and the Van Wezel Foundation. We would also like to thank our community partners, Rough and Ready Media, Moms Demand Action Sarasota, and Wholehearted Education. Friends, because bullying is so pervasive in our schools, students, parents, and educators need support. This event provides a safe space and fun activities for students and parents to address this issue. And one of the people who will help us better understand bullying is my good friend, Mr. Eric Boldon Sr. Mr. Eric is a retired sergeant with the Sarasota Police Department who grew up in Newtown here in Sarasota and spent more than 30 years with the department. He's one of our guest speakers who will address bullying along with teaching artists and community volunteers who will help provide tools for students and parents. I had the pleasure to speak to Mr. Eric recently during a very informative conversation. Hi, friend. Thanks for joining me. Now, let's talk about Saturday's big event.
How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Mr. Stephen?
I'm doing fine, sir. I'm doing fine. I just want to thank you again. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us and wanted to talk about your involvement in the upcoming event at this Saturday's Mr. Stevey event, but also see if you want to share with viewers a little bit about your journey in terms of growing up in Sarasota, also in your career in law enforcement, as well as your feelings and your thoughts about bullying prevention. So let's just start there.
Okay.
Let's start with growing up in Sarasota. Now, were you born and raised in Sarasota?
Yes, I was born and raised right here in Sarasota.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what part of
I,
town, what part of town, or I should ask, what part of town and what schools did you go to?
I grew up in Newtown. I
Mhm.
grew up in Newtown. Actually, I'm a product of the Sarasota Housing Authority, public housing. I grew up in public housing in Sarasota, in the city of Sarasota. I attended Booker Elementary School, as well as Southside Elementary School. I was actually in the last class of sixth graders that was in elementary school. So uh, I was the last class of sixth graders that was in elementary school at Southside Elementary School.
Oh,
And from there, I went on to Sarasota Middle School,
mhm,
and ultimately I graduated from Sarasota High School.
mhm. Wow. So all the way homegrown, fully
All the way,
homegrown.
all the way, all the way homegrown. Except for a few stints here and there, I've always been right here in the Sarasota area. Currently, I live in Manatee County, but I've
Mhm.
always been in the Sarasota Bradenton area.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's so awesome. Talk to if you can talk to reader excuse me, talk to viewers a little bit about what it was like growing up in Sarasota. Um,
It was great growing up in Sarasota. I tell you, it's so much change has come. To be uh, grown up here, to be able to see, all of the change that has come to Sarasota. It's just been amazing. But I really really enjoyed Sarasota. It's been a great place to grow up, great place to raise it. Your family, and I've really enjoyed my career with the Sarasota Police Department. Nothing but great things to say about Sarasota and the community.
so the theme of this event that we're going to have Saturday is bullying prevention. Um,
Yes, sir.
could you share with us any experiences you had growing up with bullying in terms of dealing with bullying? Did you have to deal with any of that in terms of bullying here at home here in Sarasota?
Yeah, well, I actually was a victim of bullying during my elementary years. Um, I actually had a speech impediment as a kid growing up,
Oh,
so uh, I stuttered, and so I received speech therapy through the Sarasota County School Board. I received it all the way from first through the sixth grade. Is when I stopped receiving speech therapy through the school board at the time. I used to meet, you know, uh, anywhere from once to like 3 times a week with a speech therapist, where they would actually pull me out of class, and
wow.
I would meet with a speech therapist. So and the kids, kids are kids, and sometimes kids can be brutal.
Yeah.
And so I did, I was teased a lot, for my stuttering, growing up. And and I even had, believe it or not, I even had some adults that would
Oh, wow.
tease, but not not really like, you know just kind of laughing, like, but not really, it was like, but in the back of my mind, you knew
Yeah.
they're teasing you, but it was kind of like just, but nothing real serious with the adults,
Yeah.
but mainly with my peers.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. How having gone through that, what were some of the ways, if you want to share, that you try to deal with that, to deal with being bullied? Were there anything that
Well,
you
I was
do
one of
strategy?
those. I was one of those kids that I really, you know, in in hindsight now, I wish I would have, you know, went to someone and talked to someone about it,
Yeah.
about the bullying as far as being teased. Um, there was a couple of times where I actually got into fights over it when in
Wow.
elementary school,
Wow.
with other kids. But I held quite a bit of it in,
Yeah.
as far as, and just kept it to myself. And because I was, I was the kid that I felt like, a lot of times that, if they saw that they got to you, I figured it out early that if they saw that, if they got to you, they kept it up more, even more. So with me, a lot of it I ignored. Like I said, it was a couple of times where I got in fights, with other kids, but I kept a lot of it in. But it's one of those things that you never forgot, and I I still remember and but it's but the kids today are even more brutal, seems like, than what I had to go through.
Wow. Yeah, so true. So true. I mean, we didn't have the internet kind of blasting out
Right.
our worst
Exactly.
moments,
Exactly.
on top of that, or spreading the news out of what happened. So yeah, absolutely can agree with you. And I know you're talking about growing up in Sarasota and having these experiences. Um, what what led you in the direction of law enforcement? If you can take us from maybe being in, did you have that kind of, did you have the idea of being part of law enforcement your entire life, or is that something that came along later on as you grew up?
No, I was always interested in law enforcement as a kid. As a kid growing up, I was that little boy that went up to officers, hey, what does this do? What's that? What's this? What's that?
Yeah,
Going around the whole entire belt, walking around, wanting to know what everything was.
yeah.
So I was that kid that was always asking questions. And I used to, I love cop shows, watching cop shows. Yeah,
Talk to
growing
me,
up
talk to
and so
me,
forth.
talk to me. Let's names. Are we talking Adam 12? What are we talking? What are we
We're
talking?
talking one Adam 12. We're talking SWAT.
Oh,
we're talking
yeah.
TJ. We're talking TJ Hooker. We're talking
Yes,
Miami Vice.
yes.
I am such a Miami Vice fan till the particular model Smith and Wesson gun that was actually that was carried, by Crockett on Miami Vice, the 4906 Smith and Wesson. I actually own one of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
Serious.
So I was I was definitely a cop, cop groupie when it came to watching shows and so on and so forth. But when I got into high school, one of my coaches was a Sarasota police officer.
Okay.
And also our team photographer was a Sarasota police officer.
Okay.
Yeah. And so eventually we got another police officer on staff also at the high school. And I just started talking to them and kind of, picking their brain and so forth. And, they told me what I needed to do and, what I need to do in order to be a police officer and so forth. And it kind of just went from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's totally cool. So was it as you went and began your law enforcement journey, your law enforcement career, did it turn out to be everything you thought it was? Or were there other things that surprised you about the profession as you began your career?
Yeah, I mean, it was a blast. Of course, the first 10 years, were like the best. It was awesome. I mean, it was like the best thing ever. Being new, being from the area, being young, and being able to try so many new and different things. It was awesome. But then there were some sides of it that wasn't so great. When you have to deal with crimes involving kids or crimes involving the elderly and so forth. Those were some of the dark moments. Anytime that it was something that was abuse of kids or abuse of the elderly, that kind of really touched me in a lot of different ways. So, but as far as enjoying the profession, I enjoyed it, but it did have some it had a lot of ups, but there's some downs as well.
Yes, I can't imagine. I can't even imagine what you see, what you deal with. How, now, part of the Mr. Stevey and Friend events kind of focuses on coping with stress, on kids understanding their feelings and their emotions. Do you mind if I ask, how did you deal with some of some of the stressors? How did you deal? What did you turn to? Were there anything that you could share
Well,
with us that you may have turned to?
yeah. Well, first and foremost, I grew up in the church. I grew up in the church,
Yes.
and
Mm.
my mom, I was that kid that every Thursday I was at Youth and Children Mission.
All right. All
Every
right.
Sunday I was at Sunday school and
All
church
right.
after that, and
All right.
our Baptist training union, and I was the kid that was involved with all of that growing up in church. So going off to camps and everything else, you name it, Easter plays, Christmas plays,
Yeah.
vacation Bible school,
Ah.
everything. So so I grew up, and I grew up in the church. I learned how to speak in public from the church. My first ever time speaking in public was, you know, behind a podium in church.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was just one of those things. So first and foremost, I went back to my faith.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
just a lot of things. My mom always taught me, to pray about it. So a lot of things I prayed about. Um, I love music. I'm a diehard music buff. Smooth jazz, R&B.
Yeah.
I listen to it all. So uh, just being able to sit back and relax and listen to a lot of my music, you
Mhm.
know, that was one of my relaxers to be able to get away from it all.
Mhm.
And I tried not to take stuff home with me. you
Oh,
know uh it was
wow.
like, that was one of the big things. And I think one of the things that where a lot of police officers and firefighters, where they go wrong, is that they only have friends that are police officers and firefighters.
Oh, wow.
So that's all they have to talk about, and that's all they know.
Yeah.
And with me, I have friends from all walks of life.
Awesome. Awesome.
So, and I didn't just um, make myself into a box with all other police officers.
Got it.
I believe that the best thing to do is to deal with a lot of it, so you're not always talking about cop stuff. Is to have different friends from all walks of life. Uh, and I think that really helped me through a lot of the dark times.
Wow, that's awesome. That is like a recipe for like self-care right there. You got the spiritual fitness, you got spirituality in there. You have, that space where you're enjoying like almost art and music where you get that, and then just that kind of space away from the profession and from those stressors, like a deliberate, I'm going to take space and look into other interests. And it shows. I mean, just I'm looking behind you. We've had discussions off camera, about a lot of your other interests. You have a photo of you traveling through Europe and other travels. So I'm sure that also helps, and sports and these, and I'm sure you have a whole plethora of other interests in there. If you feel like, well, before I get into that, um, I wanted to talk a little bit about, kind of go back to, um, almost like lessons, if you'd like to share like lessons from your law enforcement career. The question that I wanted to ask was, what was the easiest part about being a police officer?
To me, the easiest part about being a police officer was being there to help.
Awesome.
I mean, that was one of the easiest parts about it, because I went into the job wanting to help people,
Mm-hmm.
and I always that was a part of the thing, is that I came here to help and to try to make a difference. And I think that's where a lot of officers go wrong now in society, is that they get into the profession for the wrong reasons.
Uh,
Um, I think what happens now is that a lot of officers, they just settle. It's like, okay, and it shows a lot when you start talking to a lot of the young officers that are in the job now, and it's like, well, I really wanted to be uh, an engineer, but I couldn't find a job. But I found out that police department was hiring, and they got a good pension program, and it's a good solid career. So I became a police officer, you know, and it's like, you know, so they really, it's like they just settle and you know, their heart is not in it. So with me, you know, it was something that my heart was always in. And I think as long as your heart is in it, you know, it's something that you will be able to be able to really grasp and follow throughout.
Officer. Let me ask you, what was the most difficult part about the profession for you?
One of the most difficult part was, as earlier stated, is you know, crimes against children,
Yeah.
crimes against the elderly. Uh, One of the most difficult parts that I had to deal with growing up in Sarasota, having, you know, been a product of Sarasota and growing up in Sarasota, and then turn around and have to police in Sarasota, is that you end up arresting classmates. You know, you end up having to deal with things with, you know, with family members and, you know, and friends and people that you've known all your life. And, you know, so that was one of the hardest parts. I think, you know, one of the hardest parts was, you know, having to um, arrest family members. You know, that was one of the most difficult things I ever had to do was,
Oh my
you know,
God.
was to arrest a family member.
Oh
You
my-
know, I had to, you know, arrest, you know, one of my uh, high school football team classmates. You know, that was very hard. You know, guy that, you know, we played in the trenches together, you know, every Friday night in high school, you know, and all of a sudden I had to turn around and arrest this guy that, you know, you know, and that was, those were the hardest, you know. That was the only thing that going back on my career after 30 years, the only thing that I probably would have done different if I had to do it all over again was probably become police officer in another community and not the community I grew up in. That was, you know, but but it, you know, it was a great to be able to police in the community you grew up in, because you were able to make a difference.
Yeah.
And you knew the people and so forth, and you knew the culture. But at the same time, it's hard on you. It's hard.
When Miss Valerie introduced us and she told me um, that you spend parts of your free time speaking to youth in the community, um, I totally was excited and continue to be excited about collaborating with you.
Well, I'm a firm believer in that it takes a village, and I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for certain people that took, you know, their time and mentored me. And you know, I grew up in a single parent household, and I had people in my life that stepped in and, you know, and helped me along the way. Coaches, friends of the family, other relatives, and the church, my church family growing up. Man, yeah, instilled a lot of the values that I have today that I still live by. And just listening to I just sat back a lot of times and listened to a lot of older people, and so people took time to invest things in me. So that's my way of giving back, as far as doing whatever I can, because someone helped me along the way. So if I can help someone else along the way, you know, that's it's what I live by, as far as being able to help other people, and it all comes back. It all comes back.
When you address the kids, what are some of your favorite topics in terms of what are topics you feel you like to get across to students, to parents, when you do get an opportunity to speak to them? What are some of the topics that you stress or trying to stress and lessons that you want to get across to them?
One of the biggest things that I feel is respect. You know, the kids today, they lack a lot of respect, but it's not all their fault. You know, it's because if you haven't seen how respect is supposed to be, if you haven't been taught the proper way, and it just all comes down to, what they've been taught and what they've seen. And we have a lot of kids that have a lot of younger parents, and but their parents being young, and a lot of times, the absence of grandmothers. I was fortunate enough to have a lot of older women and older men within the church, and relatives and so forth, that that showed me the way. And I think that's what's lacking today. The main thing is just a lot of respect, and knowing what's right and what's wrong. You know, they see a lot of the wrong, but they don't see a lot of what's right. And I think once it's all about, when you know better, you can do better.
Yes.
And
Amen.
it's just all about just teaching them, how to do better.
Awesome. Yeah, that's totally awesome. Totally awesome. And that's a perfect segue into, respect, into empathy, into these things that we're going to be talking about on Saturday. How would you define bullying? What's bullying to you? Or what's bullying? What's bullying or bullying behavior to you?
Uh, uh Bullying behavior pretty much is, you know, the ongoing, teasing
Mm-hmm.
or nagging of an individual, uh, to the point, where it inflicts, emotional pain, or to that individual of some sort, but not just emotional. A lot of times it becomes physical, because you have kids that stop eating, you have kids that commit suicide, you have kids that it leads to a lot of different things. And and a lot of times kids that the bully, that are bullying, a lot of times they have been bullied, or they have low self-esteem themselves. And it all goes back to what I said, is that they haven't been taught respect. They haven't been taught respect. And a lot of times they just and a lot of what they see on TV these days is just like, with the media and so forth,
Yeah.
all they see is violence, and and the hurt and this and that, and there's no good. You can have 1,000 stories that are out there that are good, but in the news media they
Uh,
look at
uh,
if it bleeds, it leads.
uh, uh,
And that's and that's pretty much the way it is in the media. So
no.
like I said, it all goes back to education, and being taught the right way.
In getting the opportunity to do this event, and for it to be the theme, and to be kind of drawing from our own personal experiences about it. You kind of like, like, I don't know about you, but there was almost a segment of the older people as I was growing up, of the generation, um, that were kind of harder individuals that felt, hey, bullying is part of, and this is the message from some of the grown-ups, not all of them, but
Yeah,
it felt as I was growing up. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, so it felt like, boys don't cry.
yeah, yeah,
Bullying's part of it.
yeah.
If you get in a fight, you better not get beat up, because then I'm gonna beat you
You
up.
better win. You better win.
All of those messages.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
and it, go ahead, please.
Well, that's one of the things, as African American men, and as a lot of times as men in general, we're taught, don't cry, you don't cry, you don't, do this, you get hurt, how many times you've heard, walk it off, shake it off,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
and this and that, so
Yeah.
it's like with all of those things, it's like we walk around with so much in us, and we don't let it out, so, and that's one of the things, is that you can teach a boy to be a firm, strong, tough young man, but that young boy, he still has emotions, he still
Yeah.
has feelings.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we go wrong a lot of times, is we try to make boys so tough, and this, and but and in doing that, we also we make them to the point where they don't have feelings. It becomes a generational curse, because it just goes from it just cycles down.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we fail a lot, is not being able to let our young men express themselves and say that they do have feelings, other than having to be that tough individual all the time.
Oh man, I can't agree. I can't agree with you more. I mean, I totally wholeheartedly agree with you about that. And it's been, for me personally, I kind of thinking, and even in teaching our young men and teaching our students, I've had to check myself, to check that attitude,
Mhm.
to check, say, oh, I'm about to, oh yeah, walk, whoa, whoa. It's okay to feel, and then kind of re-establish that okayness of feeling how you want to feel about a
Yeah.
situation, whatever that
Yeah.
situation is.
Yeah.
But you clued in right on it in terms of the focus being on the feelings, the focus on positively expressing yourself, or even dealing with negative emotions or negative feelings toward another individual, even yourself. So totally agree with you. And I know that's one of the goals of these events with Mr. Stevey and Friends, is to get into those feelings, to be okay with them, to identify them if we can, and do it in a positive space, in a positive environment with positive people. What's your opinion on the bullying problem? Is it a big problem, a not so big problem?
I think it's a big problem.
Mhm.
It's a big problem, but it's not a big problem right now as a in-person problem. The bigger problem with bullying right now is all through your Facebook and your other social media avenues.
Yes.
That's where it's the most prevalent at. As far as the schoolyard bullying, I still believe it's there, but only I believe the schoolyard bullying is still at the elementary level a lot, and somewhat middle school. But in middle school and your high school now, the social media bullying has taken over the schoolyard bullying.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Whole new
yeah,
beast.
it's whole new, and everything from the catfish bullying to the you name it.
Yeah.
It's out there. And things that I've never heard of before, that they can go on, and but they see so much in the media now. You have even with the music now, you have one artist that says something about one artist and his songs, and then it goes to back and forth bullying through music.
Yeah.
So it's they see so much in all the different avenues now that we receive information, that it's that's the bigger problem.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Yeah, online bullying and all, like you said, there's just so many different ways, whether it's shaming, like, hey, here's a photo of somebody, let's spread it to the whole school, or let me spread some stuff from Facebook or my Instagram. Totally agree. Yeah, and it's such a new level of trashing reputations, or kind of influencing the school about a particular person. It's like a mass media. We would never experience this in terms of growing up. Imagine, I mean, I can't imagine me getting into an incident at school, say, some kind of disagreement during recess. And we only dealt with, hey, oh, was that you and Johnny? Did you and Johnny almost get in a fight over the ball? And then maybe discussed a little bit among your classmates a little bit. But I can't even imagine someone filming a fight, and then you not only lost the fight, but now that's spread out.
Now the world, it's out to the world.
To the world.
To
everything. It's such another level of whatever that feeling was of being a failure, of being bullied, or being powerless. It's just another level. And again, good point.
Yeah. But not only that, though. I mean, another thing that with our older kids and even adults, that's crazy
Yes.
is these reality TV shows.
Yes.
Because they see all the bullying and the back and forth in these reality TV shows, and they think that that's real. They think that we supposed to live like that every day around each other, not knowing that, okay, it's a reality show where these are technically not B actors, not C actors, but D and F actors, and it's
like that.
and they're pretty much making money to act like a fool. But adults and teenagers and so they think that this is the way I'm supposed to act all of a sudden.
Right. Good point.
So it becomes mainstream that these kids now are thinking that they're like a reality show, and they're living their life like it's a reality show, and it's just back and forth bullying, and I think that's a major problem that we have.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. So I mean, we have these examples. We even have, like, we're here, me and you, in the 21st century, looking at the different levels that bullying has taken from when we were growing up. What advice would you give to folks dealing with bullying these days?
One of the main things that I'd say is, first and foremost, check who your friends really are. Check your friends, and circle yourself with good people.
Yes.
I tell teenagers all the time, if you're the smartest one in your group, you may want to find a new group.
That's good advice.
So surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with positive people, with positive youth. And not only that, you gotta ask questions. You gotta ask questions. You gotta go to reliable adults, your teachers, your counselors, and you gotta not be afraid to ask a question. A lot of times our youth now, they're just afraid to ask. They're afraid to ask because they're afraid they're going to get shamed. They're going to get shamed, just by asking a question. But I try to tell youth that the only dumb question is an unasked question.
Yes.
You gotta ask questions, and you gotta just surround yourself with positive people and people that are like-minded, and stay away from the drama. Stay away from the drama. As kids get caught up into so much drama now, and I say, just try to stay away from it. Try to stay away from it, and and as far as if you don't have something nice to say, don't say nothing at all. If it's something that that you can't say in front of your parents, don't say it. If it's something that you can't say that person's face, don't send it. So those are just some of the things that I try to teach youth and instill the youth, that and the main thing is just trying to find positive people to be around, and positive friends with like-mindedness.
Absolutely. That's great advice. As a matter of fact, that's such good advice that I'm gonna leave it there.